Hello. Kind of hard to see down here, but just want to make some test rounds on the Dillon. So this is Dillon 550B, and sorry about that noise. It's the furnace. It's a progressive press manual index, so I have to rotate this for each stage, but it does make, for each die, something else, something different is going on at each stage. So this is your step 1 die, sizing, depriming, and when a new primer goes in. So that's a new primer. Old ones are supposedly supposed to fall out into that, but they hardly ever do. Step 2, powder. Hard to see. This is where your powder goes. I gotta clean it out and put new powder in, but it's obviously a nightmare to set up. All of these dyes, just the slightest thing that's off could basically make your bullet unsafe, make your bullet not function in your gun. This is, so yeah, that's the powder dye. When you pull the handle and the case comes in through here, it bells the mouth of the case and powder goes in. This is the bullet seat dye, and then that's the crimp dye. So just gonna make some dummy rounds. So something to consider. Dummy rounds are like, it's a good way to test a bullet before wasting your time and making a bunch of them. Even when you do make them, before you go making 100, you need to make like 10 or 20 and see how they work, what the ballistics are like and everything. I use a chronograph to test mine, but this is my Glock 21 SF, so just going to be making a few dummy 45s, which are basically what I call a bullet that looks like this. It has the bullet head, but no primer and no powder, so it's perfectly safe to cycle it through your gun. Obviously it's not going to fire, but the whole point is to see how it chambers. Does it does it extract? Does it is a new bullet able to go into the chamber? How does it cycle? So you want to use a sheet like this, which you can get online. This has all your dimensions. So this is for 45 ACP. So it has our overall case length. There's a range of what you can have, a minimum and a maximum. You're going to do your measurements with calipers. I like the digital ones. It's best to invest in a good set. This is my little load data book. So once I figure out how a round works, I put it in here, and then I have it forever. So I have all of the rounds that I've ever made and tested are in here. For this bullet, this is a 230 grain copper plated round nose, and the overall length that I found works in my gun is like 1.25 to 1.2675. So I'm gonna be trying to get closer to this number here, the 1.2675, and crimp 0.47 inch. It's important not to have too much crimp or too little crimp, and obviously overall length is extremely important. The powder that I've been able to use successfully, 5.3 grains universal, 4.5 grains tight group. You have all different powders. It's important to know a lot about powders and what you're putting into your cartridge, because you can really have some horrific accidents if you're not careful. So a book like this this is for 9mm, of course, but it tells you for every weight of bullet that they make, it tells you your safe ranges. So it'll tell you in grains, which is what you're going to measure in. You also need a little scale like this that will measure grains. We're not going to get into that in this video. I just want to make a few, I can't even open this thing with one hand because I'm trying to take the video. Just going to make a few dummy rounds so you can see how it works. But first thing is, this goes in here, comes up. I'm not going to push it down all the way because I don't want to seat a primer. That defeats the whole purpose. Rotate it, go over to this station, I'm pulling the handle again, comes up, no powder is going to drop in because it's empty. Bring it down and it'll be flared at this point. Now, if I were actually reloading, what I would do is I would put a new case in the first section. Now, actually, I would have put one in before I did the powder. Sorry. Every time it's kind of hard to talk and do this. Every time you flip this thing, we'll just pretend that I didn't put the powder in. So I'm going on. Okay, so now this one was just sized and deprimed, and this one, we'll say for the first time, was belled. Now when I move it over here, I'll put my bullet in to be seated. I'll put a new one in here. Now when I pull the handle, now you can see that this bullet was seated, this one would have just been belled, and this one would have just been sized and deprimed. Now I rotate it again. New casing goes in. This one is about to get belled. This one is going to get seated. This one is getting crimped over there. So I'll pull the handle. Obviously, like I said, don't see anything. Now the finished bullet drops into there. This is a finished one. Finished dummy round. I'm only going to make 4, so I'm just going to do this really quick, just bang these out. It's so hard to do this with one hand, I can't even tell you. Obviously, when you're actually going, it goes a lot faster, but, okay, so there they are. 4 dummy rounds, no primer, no powder. Now what we're going to do to make sure that they actually cycle in the gun is, I'm going to put this down for 2 seconds here. Can lean it against something. It's just for 2 seconds. I'm going to load up my magazine. Okay, so now I have my 4 dummy rounds are in here, and we're just going to try to cycle them through the gun. So, once again, I'd like to try to stand this up somehow so you can see what I'm doing. That's probably the best that we're going to do here. So, now, do they cycle? We're just going to rack the slide and see if they pop out. So, that's exactly what you want to happen. That is basically the first step to, you know, am I on the right track